Came for my wins, I need my ends. This life is real, I get it in, I get it in.
What's going on, people? Welcome to this week's episode of The Flex. Well, not even this week's, the next episode of The Flex. How you lot doing, man? I want to talk about, obviously, the return of football in the Premier League with the Premier League players going back to training today. And also the return of the Bundesliga. And on a bigger picture, I want to quickly touch on just lockdown easing in general in the UK. Obviously, I know you guys are watching from all over the world, so it's different where you are. I'll start with kind of just lockdown here. We saw last week the Prime Minister change the wording and the slogan around what to do and kind of change it to stay alert instead of stay safe, which, look, it's going to take common sense, but it wasn't very clear. People weren't sure whether to go back to work now or go back next week. The schools are now in limbo in terms of what do we do? How hard is it, or how are we going to keep children safe and stuff like that? And that's transpired into football as well. So I think it was a bit of a mixed message from the government last week. I mean, the biggest thing for me is that they were basically saying to me that I can get into my car now, I live in Luton, and I can drive to Newcastle. I could drive to Newcastle right now, right, and sit in a park up there for unlimited hours, as long as I'm social distancing, but I can't go to my mum's yard and sit in her garden when I know, like, the people that have been going in there. My mum's been social distancing or isolating, should I say. She's been in her house just with her and my sister. I don't get that. I don't understand why all of a sudden parks have become the sacred bit of sanitation. All of a sudden, like, parks are like the cleanest places to go in society. Listen, man, it does depend where you live and what area you're from or whatever, yeah. I know some nasty ass parks. Do you know what I'm saying? If I grew up in northwest London, some of the parks in Harlesden, bro, they're awful. Do you know what I'm saying? Versus a park in, say, Battersea or St Albans or Harpenden, or a nice plush area where the park's nice and that. Sometimes parks could be the most awful places to be. Do you know what I'm saying? Whether you've got, I don't know, empty beer cans, or, you know, people taking drugs in parks and dogs pissing and shitting everywhere, but all of a sudden I'm allowed to spend unlimited time in there, but within my own mum's back garden where I know no one else has been it apart from her and my sister, and they ain't got no symptoms, versus I can't do that. Don't make no sense. But then my mum can go to the park and I can be with her for unlimited hours in the park, as long as I'm 2 meters apart, but I can't be with her in the garden 2 meters apart. That don't make no sense to me. So there was a lot of discrepancies with what the government says. Obviously it is about using the common sense, which is what they wanted to do, but unfortunately we need more guidance in that. I think when we're in a pandemic and people panic and people want to bend the rules to suit their needs, you need black and white, and I think the government kind of failed at that. But anyway, into football, I want to start by looking at the Bundesliga and what I thought about the return of that. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of people on social media sort of saying this is shit. Oh, why even bring it back if it's like this? It's dead without fans. News alert. We know it's dead without fans. What we've learned more than anything in this time, is that fans absolutely make football. Was I watching the Dortmund game thinking, atmosphere is weird and it's wrong and it's this and that? Absolutely. But I've got my head around that normal life. I keep saying it. The N word, normal, yeah? It's like we all strive for it. We all want normality to be here now. And we have to remember that normal, whether it be going to the shop to buy a loaf of bread, or whether it be going to work, whether it be watching a film, whether it be watching sports, it's all different. Normal's gone. Forget normal. So I watched it with that head on. You know, I was just happy to see some football. Yeah, there's loads of debates whether it's right or wrong. Should they come back? Shouldn't they come back? And people were saying, okay, well, what's the point in social distancing on the bench? But then I'm going to get in a wall for a free kick and be right next to someone. I get that. But I think it's about, but then people were saying, well, you need to reduce the risk. We only want to go back when we want to reduce the risk at all times. And that's what they're doing. They're basically saying, whenever it's avoidable, social distance. But obviously, when you're in a war and you have to play the game, then it's not avoidable. But also, the thing is as well, it's like, it doesn't make sense when you think of it literally, yeah? Like, okay, we're sitting here, let's say, and there's a person 2 meters there, but then both of us come on as a sub and then we're next to each other in the wall. I get that, that might not make sense. But then you have to think of it as like, all these players have actually been tested. So before that game, and they know that their results are negative. Okay, I get it. They could go out and then catch it and then whatever, and that's why they're getting tested so regularly. But then if you know that nobody has got it, yeah. If I take a test and you take a test, yeah, and we both don't have it, and we're both in the same environment, yeah, how are you gonna catch it? That's what I'm asking. I'm not having a go at anyone who thinks that. I'm merely asking the question because I'm not a professional in this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist or studying biomedical science and all that crap. Yeah, well, it's not crap. It's very important, but I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is if I take a test, you take a test, he takes a test, she takes a test, yeah, and then we're all in the same room or vicinity, right, for a football match, say an hour and a half. How are we going to get it? That's the whole reason of doing all these tests, because they're saying the players don't have it and they won't have it for that match because the results have come the day before and they're not going to have it. And that for me is like, well, it don't really matter what they do on the pitch. That's why they can tackle each other full contact or rub elbows and the sweat goes on each other and all of that, headers and all of this. That's why they can do it, because they know the people they're playing against and the people they're playing with don't have coronavirus. Don't get me wrong. The test though is almost like a bit of a CRB check. Like it's only as good as soon as you do it, because literally after that you can go and contract it and you might not know till the next test. But that's why they won't play a game until the next test or the next training or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? Like a DRB, you could pass the DRB because you ain't got a criminal record, and as soon as you've done it, as you haven't, you can go out and commit a crime and then get convicted, but you just haven't done another CRB in that time, so it doesn't show it. That's why the testing has got to be so rigorous and so consistent. So again, I get it. It goes for both. It goes for both situations. But for me, I think that if you're getting tested and I'm getting tested, or we are all getting tested, yeah, in one sort of, they're creating little social bubbles, aren't they? They're creating almost like their households. Borussia Dortmund team is now basically a household. The only thing that did strike me, I was like, surely these players have to be away in quarantine, like on a World Cup camp or something like that, or when athletes go to the Olympics and stuff, they live in the Olympic Village and things like that. Because surely allowing the players to move around, then it's gonna, the rate of infection, the chance of infection could rise, because obviously they're gonna go, I don't know, say I don't know, say Bruno Fernandes trains, plays, gets tested, hasn't got it, but then he leaves the game, and then he goes back home, but his missus has been out shopping at Tesco's to get the food shop, and actually brought the kids with her, and she might have contracted the virus in there. When Bruno Fernandes goes home, he could catch it off his wife. So I get that, and that's why I think it's either one of two things. You've got to either keep them away and keep them in quarantine so you can control the variables in the environment a lot easier, like a scientific experiment, when you can control the amount of light that gets in, or control the amount of water that's in a tank. Like, you need to be able to control the variables. Either you do that, or I think maybe you don't come back yet. It's too soon, because look, I'm one for them coming back if it's safe to do so, but I 100% get why people think it shouldn't. And that leads into the Premiership. I mean, the Premier League players are due back for training today. And, you know, you see Troy Deeney kind of saying that he's not going back. He's not going back. I don't care if you take my money. I respect that. And I think the key here is that it has to be an individual basis. Like I said, everyone has different priorities. Troy Deeney's priorities is that he has a young child who he says has breathing problems, and he has, and he's of colour, a person of colour, BAME. And there is, you know, research that is saying that we're, I think, 4 times more likely to contract the virus. So he was saying, until I get some answers from the Premier League regarding that, I ain't playing. Do you know what? Who can argue with that? Who can argue with someone saying that? I don't think that anyone can argue with that, and that is why it should 100% be up to the players. But I don't think that should stop all of football coming back. I think that should stop individual players coming back because they don't deem it safe. Because if there's, let's say, out of the whole percentage of footballers, let's say there's 3% of footballers who don't want to play, then those 3% don't play. I don't think it would be good to get a revolt of all players going, actually, yeah, because he said he's not playing, we're all not playing, you know. And you know, if all the players took a pay cut, then maybe football wouldn't have to come back so quickly. Maybe it wouldn't. But a lot of players are still on their full whack. A lot of players still want paying. A lot of clubs need to pay the people that work there, and also everyone else in society is starting to go back to work. And footballers are going to be in one of the most safest, controlled environments going, hopefully, with the Premier League. But I do get, if as a footballer you're looking for those reassurances about what are you doing to target this and what are you doing to target that, and you're asking the Premier League these things, not just as a captain of Watford, but just as a player, and you can't give me any assurances because you don't really know the answers, then is it safe for me to come back with my personal situation? If it's not, I wouldn't. If I lived in a household with people who were extremely vulnerable, or I had a young one who was vulnerable, and I couldn't get those reassurances as to what you're going to do, then I wouldn't come back too. But then again, on the flip side of that, Troy Deeney would have a choice to make, or any other player would have a choice to make, because then it's down to the club to prove to them, or show to them, or the Premier League, or to convince the player or show the player that they are putting in suitable measures. So, all right then, Troy, or whichever player it is, we're going to put you in a hotel away from everything. You won't be able to go and see your family because we understand you don't want to be around that. We're going to test you even more than the 2 times a week, and we're going to give you all the mod cons and all of this stuff. Maybe they do that. Then that will be whether up to Troy Deeney or the player to say, nah, I'd rather you just stop my wages. Because that's what I respect most about what Troy Deeney said. He said it's not about money. It ain't about money. I've been broke. I've done being broke before. That I got respect for. I got a lot of respect for that, because he's saying that I'm not willing to sacrifice my family just for a few quid in my back pocket, which was a quote. That's what he actually said. And I agree with that. If you think that there is going to be some threat to your family or your loved ones or who you live with or to yourself, then absolutely you shouldn't play. You should not play. It leads into different arguments of, like I said, if the average person who works in retail says I'm not going back to work, but the company perceive it as they've put everything in place for it to be as safe as possible, because we know we can't eradicate this risk at all, but we need to start going back to work because people need to work and get money, etc., then it will get a bit sticky when companies start going against employees, sort of saying, well, we believe that we have put everything in place for you to be safe, and you're saying you don't want to come back, so take unpaid leave then. Very, very sticky situation, and I think that's the complexity with all of this. There is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. You've seen the Scottish League has ended now as well. Celtic surprisingly got another trophy, another SPL title, which was always going to happen anyway. But Hearts, one of the biggest teams in Scotland, in terms of history, relegated, and they had a chance to stay up. So now they're looking at legal action, and that's the same thing. It's all good saying that maybe the teams down the bottom don't want to come back, or they don't want to do this, or they don't want to do that. But everyone's looking after their own interests. I said it. I was talking on AFTV with Robbie the other day, and I said, look, do I understand why clubs in a position where they could have their Premier League status taken away from them? Do I understand why they're looking out for their best interests? Absolutely, of course. I try and put myself in the mind of a team that was down there. What would I want for my team if we were fighting relegation? Of course I'd want the league to just be voided and not come back, and then come back when it's safe to do so and we go again. Because that's what's best for my team. Plus, obviously, it's probably what you might deem as the safest way. But at the end of the day, there isn't going to be one size fits all. If you come back and then, but then you say, oh, we'll come back, but then we just don't want to get relegated, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean? You may as well just decide it then. So look, I get all sides, and there isn't going to be one single solution to this where everybody is happy. It's going to keep going round and round in circles. And at the end of the day, I just think until we say don't do nothing for 18 months, don't do anything until there's a vaccine, then there's always going to be this element of risk. Maybe, I do agree with the June, I think it's June the 12th or 13th or something like that, of the Premier League comeback is too soon. That's 3 weeks away from now. And they're only starting the first phase of training and not even allowed to be in contact with each other. You can't expect these players to come back after a couple of weeks of doing this dead training. They're just going to be able to just open up their lungs, can't even do proper ball work with everyone and work on stuff. You can't. I think maybe late June is more feasible. That'll be a couple extra weeks, maybe even early July. I'd be happy with that, because I understand that also that this is changing. Things are going down. The rate of infections going down. The number of deaths are still happening, but it's going down compared to what it was. So we're still showing that trajectory. And obviously, if the trajectory shows something different, everything needs to get locked down anyway. But my fear is as soon as something happens, we could have always had a second wave of this regardless anyway. When it gets to winter time and you've got a lot of fevers around, a lot of flu around, people get sick around the winter time anyway. But if there's a second wave, everyone's just going to blame the Premier League or blame the government, saying we should have stayed locked down. There's always going to be questions. Someone's going to try and nitpick at something. At the end of the day, the way I see it is that at some point, we have to start stepping out our yards and getting back to a bit of normality. Do you know what I mean? If you're able to do so, I stress, if you're able to do so. If you're able to do it with no repercussions for yourself and health-wise and stuff like that, or childcare, whatever your circumstances are, there's going to be a time where you have to step into the uncertain, the unknown. Do you know what I'm saying? I get that that level of risk might be a little bit less the further away we come from the peak. So I hear people when they say that maybe we should start a little bit later because it's more time away from the peak that we've just been through. I hear that, but I just think at some stage, especially, it's very difficult when schools are being asked to go back. Certain businesses and shops might start opening from the 1st of June. It's like everyone's trying to make an effort to try and get back. I think it's too easy to kind of just accept defeat and go, nah, I don't want to do it. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what the next coming weeks bring us, and let me know what you guys think about it. Should football be coming back? I know I keep asking this, but now there's, actual steps for it coming back, and the Premier League players are going back to training. Do you think that's right? How long do you think they need to get back? Let me know. Drop your views in the comments in the boxes below. Make sure you smash a like on the video as well. And also on my channel, I've got coming up Andy Cole interview, exclusive as well, so that will be coming to the channel probably end of the week, so look out for that as well. Also Fridays, you lot know what it is, hit me up, FlexUTD on Instagram live, doing some live DJ sets for the people. I'm out of here. Peace.